Recorded live on the turf at Mad Lab Training Studio in Eldersburg, Maryland. This is the Time to Win podcast with Alex and Dan. Now let's get this podcast started.
Dan.
Yes.
Dan, are you ready to win?
I'm ready to win, Alex.
Okay, because it's that time again.
It is time to win.
Yeah, okay, everyone. I'm Alex.
I'm Dan, as
And
far
it's-
as I know.
And it's time to win.
It's time to win.
So Dan, I've been torturing you for a week now.
Yes.
I hit you with a text on
Sunday.
Sunday, and I'm like, Dan, regarding Friday, I'm really, really angry.
Capital letters.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. And I was, but then I dialed it back because I was kind of fishing. I was just throwing it out there to see what you would do with it, right? I was feeling strongly about something, right? So
For sure.
A short time later, you didn't respond, okay? And then I sent, man, maybe I'm just very upset. And
Capital
you hit me
letters.
back with a bunch of emojis, crying, laughing emojis, oh man, this is going to be good, right? And I've been kind of bothering you about it all week long. And finally 2 days ago, I said, I'm actually not angry, I'm not upset, I'm just very passionate about something. And I thought maybe I'd tell you what, and we could just see where
I
that
can't
goes.
wait. I've been waiting for a whole week.
I know. Okay, so here's what it is, and I don't even know where to start this one or how to carry it forward. So I'm going to throw this one out there, and I'm going to let you run with it, and we'll just riff off of it. Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay. So here's what I'm thinking. Right, labels. All right, I am so bad about this. I am constantly labeling people that I see, complete strangers, people I don't even see them. I just see their car, and I'm like, oh, there goes a MAGA Republican, right? And it shuts the conversation down. I'm so bad about this. I have no idea who this person is. I don't know
Right.
what they're doing. I pull up to a red light, and the first thing in my head is, oh my God, look at all these idiots. Right? And I'm like, no, I don't.
That's how my drive was
so
here today.
Bad that I do that, right? And I don't mean this to be a confessional podcast or anything, but I think people label stuff all the time. It's easy to say, oh, look at that, that's a sled, that's a squat rack, that's a dog, okay? But when we start labeling people without knowing them, that's the problem, right? So I'll start it out with my confession. That's what I'm really angry and upset about. I'm upset with myself because I just default to labeling people for no reason.
Well, there's probably a reason, though, and I'm not saying that it's good, but I think that maybe human beings are naturally geared to do that, so so that you can categorize and sift through and then try to logically think about something. Unfortunately, I think that many people will label something, and then that's it. No more learning about it. Right. No more character. All right, we're going to categorize these. Do we have them in the right categories? No. Is there an in-between category? Do we have to create a new category? Maybe. I don't feel like that goes on. It's just this is this category, and it's never changing. We're never taking it out of there no matter what new information we get.
Right.
And we're just going to ignore any new information. I think that might be the problem.
Yeah. And, that's a real shame because, I think that the people we meet out there, all the people in the world, we have a lot more in common with each other than maybe we would guess. And I think we, certainly in my case, I label people and I try and put them in a box and say, is that person a threat to me or is that a friend or a foe?
Yeah.
And who knows, right? I just do this and I throw them in that box.
Yeah, maybe it's a survival thing.
Maybe, I don't know.
And you look at the car next to you and you're like, red car, foe.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, I see gigantic SUVs on the road with single passengers in them. I'm like, oh, cute commuter car, dude, right? And there I go again. See it
Could be going to pick up his 8 kids.
Yeah,
or her 8 kids.
Maybe a tradesman who just is getting ready to come and finish my house or something.
Or maybe it is one of the 8 kids driving it.
Yeah,
a little more concern there.
Yeah. So. Anyway, that's what I'm passionate about. And I'm trying real hard to get out of that. And I like what you said, sometimes if we take a second and we think about it, this might be something new. We might not have a box that we can put this person or this thing into, right? We might have to create something new. And, we talked a couple of weeks ago about starting over and how hard that is. And, Yeah, like labeling people or getting out of that practice of labeling people is really, really hard.
Maybe, I don't know if you can get, because you're going to label somebody no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just how I think the human brain works.
Okay.
So you're going to categorize people. Like, remember when we were talking about like interviewing for a society?
Yeah.
There was 4 boxes.
Right.
And then like people fall into one of those, and then we do want people from certain boxes, and there was one box that we did not want,
Yeah, yeah.
which was
The hard-working fools.
the hard-working idiots.
Yeah.
Isn't that what it was? I think. Yeah. We don't want any of those. We'd rather have lazy idiots
Yeah,
than the hard-working idiots.
Yeah, because they're going to dedicate their life to screwing everything up.
Right.
Yeah.
But in reality, there probably are, like, if you did have an interview process like that, and like we're like, all right, that person's a lazy idiot, there should be an opportunity for that person in your eyes to move boxes, or for you to also be like, okay, now I have all this new information. Maybe there's like a lazy average person, or
Right.
like a lazy, not so much of an, whatever it is.
Right. Right. Like maybe if we get to know them a little bit, maybe
Yeah.
if we ask a couple questions or spend some time with them, we may find ourselves like putting them somewhere else, like creating a new category for them, or saying, "Oh, I had that person all wrong. They're actually awesome." Right. Like,
And that's part of it too. It's like, can you get new information, and can you be open-minded with new information, and are you able to know that you're wrong, admit that you're wrong, even in your own head, and just be like, all right, I have this person not categorized right, or this category is not correct.
Yeah.
But I think categorization is part of actual logical human thinking.
man, you're cutting me a lot of slack today, Dan. I appreciate it. I feel.
I'm just here to support you, Alex.
Hanging out with you, I just feel a little bit better about myself. So thanks for that.
Of course.
So stuff that doesn't fit the label, though. Have you ever been to the Grand Canyon?
I have not.
Okay, that's good, because as a kid or maybe even as a teenager, you look at the Grand Canyon, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Can we go to the gift shop, right? Or can we go to the snack bar now, right? But as an adult, you don't have any box to put that into. It's like inconceivable, the Grand Canyon. You look at it and you're like, I have never seen anything like that before in my life. I don't even know how to describe it, right? And you're overwhelmed, you're bowled over. And what a great feeling as an adult to be like stunned by something like that,
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But it sets up this cognitive dissonance, right? Like, you're like totally off your game, right? And I'm dealing with this right now because, I told you that I'm planning to go walk across the Grand Canyon next year, right?
That's right.
And I have one friend that's like, oh my God, you shouldn't do that. It's a terrible idea. You will almost certainly die. Do you have any idea how many people die in the Grand Canyon every year?
That's kind of that's actually, keep going. That is interesting.
Right. I mean, maybe the number is like a few. I don't know. It is, but the percentages is so low because, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people visit the Grand Canyon every year. And
For sure.
2 die, I mean, that's kind of like probably the average of like, thousands of people visit New York City and 2 die. Okay, right?
But to your point, he probably does, like, he saw a story, read a story of somebody dying, and was like, that's it. You go to the Grand Canyon at a certain age, certain death.
Yeah. Okay. So that's data point number 1, right?
Right.
And here's data point number 2. I have my buddy who was a ranger at the Grand Canyon. He's like, "Oh, that's so awesome that you're doing that. I've done it a half a dozen times," and never died. Right. So, but we like. Here I am. I'm kind of siding with, it's still a great idea. I'm definitely going to go do it. But, like, how do I reconcile that, right? This one guy has labeled the Grand Canyon as a hostile alien environment. The other guy is like, it's super cool. It's going to be the best adventure of your life. And, it's like, I kind of know what it's going to be. But we're confronted with this stuff all the time.
I guess there's 2 different things that happen. So, one, your risk-reward system kicks in, right? And you're like, okay, if it is as great as the ranger says it is, that would be awesome. Plus, if I go do it, I am kind of like sticking it to the other friend, and I lived, right? Or you might be like, on the other side of things, you go, technically, I could die. Also,
Yeah. Okay. So I never really factored in glory points on this one. That's a pretty good one.
I always factor in glory points.
Okay,
They're
right.
very important on the
Because-
scorecard of life.
Because history is written by the winners, right?
By the winners.
You only hear the glory stories.
That's right.
Well, actually, you don't always hear the glory
And the
stories.
winners only listen to this podcast. The second best podcast in the world. Second best. I think we're number 2 right now, but we're on our way to the top.
Okay.
I'd
good
imagine.
enough. We probably have like 3 listeners at this point, so
I feel like a 4th is on its way.
that's where it starts, right? So that anyway, Dan, that's what was bugging me all week. I was feeling super passionate and feeling really not guilty, just a little embarrassed in myself that I would do this. And, like it happened again just before the podcast, right?
Right.
Like I pull into the parking lot and it's just mayhem.
This parking lot is the worst. For your listeners, you should come visit Mad Lab. It's an excellent place. However, the parking lot is interesting. It's a very interesting setup. And I don't think it allows people to drive to the height of their capabilities, whatever they are.
Right. So the math is working against the parking lot. There's 2 ways in and 1 way out, right?
That's right.
And the 1 way out is not a great way out.
It's not.
But it was crowded this morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a long line of people that were trying to get out.
Trying to get into Mad Lab, yes.
No, trying to get out of the parking
Right,
lot.
gotcha.
Maybe they had already been to Mad Lab.
They heard I was here and they tried to escape.
But and the parking lot was loaded up. There were a ton of people. So, the first thing in my mind is, oh my God, look at all these idiots, right? I'm like, well, wait a minute, this is so wrong. They're probably like really nice people. And I see a parking spot and I go to it and I'm pulling into the parking spot and the guy on my right-hand side opens up his car door.
Ugh.
Now, wait a minute. Here's what it's the perfect storm for me, right? I don't know what my liberal trigger is on this thing, right? But here's a guy. He steps out. He's got a ton of facial hair. He's driving a Mac Daddy SUV. He's head to toe camo, and I'm like, oh my God, look at this guy. And then he gets back in his car and he closes the door, and I pull into the parking spot and he looks over at me and he waves.
Oh,
And I was
yeah.
like, dude, thank you so much. That was like the guy.
Super nice guy.
And now my world is rocked, right? Here's this guy that I like with no experience at all. I put him in the faux category, right? He's not a friend, he's a foe because he's all in camo. He's driving that big-ass truck. He's taking up my space. He's in my grill. But he wasn't, And then all of a sudden, he was like a nice guy that did me a favor. He did a favor
Friend.
for a stranger. And so who's the asshole in this story, right? It's me, right? And I'm trying. Yeah, I know, but this is my evolution, right? Like I catch myself more and more often in the process of being an asshole to people, and I'm trying. And this is why I'm upset because I catch myself doing it. I don't know if I'm doing it more, or if I'm just hyper aware now that I've already labeled myself as an asshole, but.
Maybe. I would say that the first step, though, is awareness.
Okay.
And I feel like you're taking steps to improve,
Yeah.
which is better than one could argue most of the population does.
Yeah.
Not our listeners, though.
Yeah.
They all take those steps.
So but okay. So maybe the title of this episode is "Alex is an asshole." I don't know, right?
No.
But he's a self-aware asshole. Okay, so
That's very important.
So just before coming to Mad Lab today, hey guys, it's Christmas time, right?
Yeah.
We're pulling out all the stops. We're getting all the Christmas decorations up. My house is like a freaking yard sale right now. There's so much Christmas decorations. There's way more than you can put up. And I'm also in the process of painting. Okay, so I've got this blank wall next to the Christmas tree that I'm going to be painting after Christmas. And I get this idea, oh, you know what? Since I'm going to be painting that wall, I can just go ahead and bang as many nails into that wall as I want to now.
Yeah.
So I start banging nails. I'm like hanging up, how many doors do I have in my house? I have 3 doors to the outside. They all have a wreath on them. Yeah, actually, I think they all have a wreath on both sides of them. There's a wreath on the bathroom
Oh,
door.
wow.
There's a wreath on the kitchen door.
Doubling it up.
And there's like 10 more wreaths laying in a stack on the floor. I'm like, okay, I'm going to bang some nails in the wall. I'm going to start hanging wreaths on the wall. And my wife comes down. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm banging holes in the wall. I'm hanging up all these Christmas wreaths. And she just looked at me like I had 3 heads. And
She gave you that look today when you walked in.
Yeah, and she does that. It's kind of like the default look at Alex, the
That's
guy
fair.
with 3 heads. But I just do this stuff without even thinking about it. I'm like, oh, what a great idea. Or, hey, what a great idea. I think I'll walk across the Grand Canyon sometime. And
But I think that's a good thing. I think you should have sporadic ideas, spontaneous ideas, and it's good to act on them.
yeah.
And it's like anything else. There's positive and negatives with whatever.
Yeah.
For sure.
But Dan, I sorry, I'm saying "but" a lot. I'm self-defeating today, right? I'm my own worst enemy today. I do stuff that is so out of the box sometimes. Like, I'm going to hang all these extra Christmas wreaths. I'm just going to hang them on the wall, right? I'm just going to go and do that. I'm not even going to talk to anybody about it. I'm just going to go walk across the Grand Canyon. I'm just going to, I don't know, whatever, do another shot of tequila, whatever. All sorts of
Did a little too
bad-
much of that last night, for sure.
So much bad mojo flowing in my veins right now. It's just, it's nutty.
Well, you've said 2 things that have made me upset. I'll say, not because you upset me, but I was starting to think about it. One,
And there goes the whiteboard.
was that thing important, Mike? No. It was just there?
It was going to tell you how much time was left.
Well, now this will be never ending, which is great. Anyway, there's 2 things in particular. One, you were talking about driving.
Yeah.
So driving is something that does upset me from time to time, and so much so that I even started writing a book on it.
Oh, okay.
It's what did I call it? I said, "How to Not Drive Like an Asshole." A book for teenagers and old people and everything in between.
Wow.
Yeah, I think is what it was called, and it goes into some of the finer points of driving that I feel like many of the population don't quite understand, such as merging 2 lanes going down into 1 lane, stuff like that.
Are you a blinkers guy? Like
So I get a little bit of scuff for this,
Okay.
because I don't always use my blinker.
Uh,
I always use my blinker if I think it's important that the person needs to know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. If there's nobody on the road, I'll just turn.
Okay.
I don't need my blinker because I know there's no one behind me. No one needs to see that what I'm doing.
That reminds me of something we talked about last episode. We talked about like obedience versus understanding.
Yeah.
Right. And obedience would be, I don't care if there's nobody around. I'm stopping. I'm gonna
Yeah.
use my turn signal. But understanding is, hey, wait a minute. There's no risk here. I'm just gonna do it because there's nobody to signal to.
Like if I walk by
Makes
somebody
sense. Yeah.
and I'm going to bump into them, or like I'm going to slide by and I feel like it's pretty uncomfortably close,
Yeah.
I'll say, excuse me.
Uh-huh.
But if I'm walking in an open space, I'm not just going to start saying, excuse me, walking around like a crazy person.
Yeah, that'd be a little
Not
weird.
that I'm not crazy, but not that crazy.
That'd be a little weird.
Yeah, a little bit weird. Yeah, so I've been in the middle of writing this book on and off forever.
All right.
I feel like. So maybe one day I'll finish it. Maybe one day I
Yeah.
won't. I usually only start writing when I'm angry at something that happened on the road. And then I'm like, I need to write this book that other people need to read. And not that I'm the greatest driver of all time. I'm probably top 10, I'd imagine. I'm just kidding. I'm not.
Top
I have
10?
top
Wow,
10.
that's
I'm
big.
on the way to the top.
Wow.
The other thing that you said, you talked about dying in the Grand Canyon,
Oh yeah.
which is an interesting thing if you really start to think about it, because people are very concerned about death.
Yeah.
And then you have some people that are not concerned at all about death.
Right.
And it's one of the most interesting topics there is, because there's no one has any experience with it, right? And we're talking about driving. Many people can teach you how to drive a car. People can talk about it. They've driven multiple different cars. They've owned a lot of different cars. Maybe they own a lot of cars at this point. But there's no one you can really talk to that has died and then has the experience, other than people that are like, maybe their heart stopped for a little bit. They came back. They said they were dead, but who knows how that works.
Yeah.
And maybe like no one knows what happens afterward. There's no information on it. It's all just theoretical and guessing.
Right.
But there's a huge fear attached to it, and many people do things their whole entire life to either not die
Right.
or to prevent it for as long as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
for
yeah.
reasons unknown.
Okay, so back to the topic at hand, Alex the asshole.
All right.
So I was accused, I don't know, within the last 2 years probably, of being an insensitive asshole because somebody that I knew died, and everybody was just on the ground with grief, like sobbing and wailing, and I was like, this person had such a great life. I'm so glad I knew them, right? And I was. I guess I wasn't happy about it, but I was, like, my default was to automatically start celebrating this person, right?
I think that's great.
I'm so grateful that I knew this person. I'm so grateful I spent time with them and learned these things from them and shared these memories. And I'm sorry I won't make new ones, but
that's one of my pet peeves too.
Okay.
So like another thing surrounding death that has angered me.
Okay.
Is, all right, let's say you went to high school with somebody, you knew who they were, but you weren't, maybe you had some conversation with them or whatever. You find out that they die, and then you tell everybody for the next like 2 weeks, and you go to the funeral and everything, and you make it like a whole thing centered around yourself because you knew somebody that died.
Right.
And I was like, to me, it's crazy because it's, one, they're not in your life. They don't affect you in any way. You knew them, but it wasn't like it was a large part of your life. It's not like losing somebody very significant to you that is going to change your day-to-day and like how you feel every day and stuff.
Right.
But then you somehow made their death about you, and to me, that's incredibly selfish.
Yeah.
And we all know people like that.
Yeah.
And that's another one of my triggers around death. But I agree with you. I think that when somebody has had a great life, then it should be celebrated, right? And have an opportunity to. It's really sad when somebody hasn't had that opportunity, and that's understandable. And I do get letting people grieve. I just don't think anybody should ever tell you how to grieve.
Yeah.
Which is another selfish thing.
Yeah.
That I think that I don't like.
Yeah. So my kids get concerned about me, right? Like, my son Spencer, right?
Yeah, I do know Spencer. Saw a grand picture of him holding up a tree.
Yeah, that was awesome. So when he was younger, we used to do these things called death runs, okay? And, we would wait until, like, the worst possible weather. Like, it's 25 degrees outside and it just started snowing. Hey, let's go for a run.
How very Alex of you.
Well, and Spencer.
And Spencer,
because he would do it too.
That's amazing.
We would go together.
Maybe how very McClung of you guys.
I guess. Or like, oh my gosh, there's a thunderstorm. Look, it's pouring outside. Let's go for a run. Oh great, let's do a stream crossing. Let's swim across the Patapsco River. Let's go we used to call these things death runs, right? And
I would see why.
Yeah. But nobody died, at least not yet. But yeah, like my son he'd become very concerned about this and say, you're going to die if you keep doing this kind of stuff. And I said, yeah, wouldn't that be awesome? And he's like, what are you talking about, Bob? And I'm like, well, like when, I'm going to die anyway someday, right? And,
supposedly.
Okay, so...
There's always my argument.
Podcast, okay? I'm not ready for that one. But like my days are numbered. I'm 62. The majority of my life is already behind me, right? So
you're going to the Grand Canyon, so you're assuredly to die there.
According to some people. Right?
According to some people.
But I said, wouldn't you rather remember me as a guy that died in the middle of a great endeavor instead of being a guy that died in a hospital bed? Right?
For sure.
Like, or just like became increasingly infirm, right? And it's kind of what you were saying earlier. I'd much rather be remembered for, a gung-ho attitude, a gusto lifestyle, and doing stuff and setting standards and going places where nobody else would go, and than being just a guy that would be remembered for his conformity or be remembered for nothing,
Right.
So
I completely get that. That's how I try to live my life every day. I want people at my funeral to be like, holy shit, I'm so glad I knew Dan.
Yeah.
He did this, and this.
Yeah.
And then he like jumped off of here, and then he did this, and then this was crazy because this and this happened. Like, that's what I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then it's also interesting because I do base my life around something that'll happen after I'm gone for who knows what reason,
Right.
right? Because if you cease to exist, then that makes a lot of sense. But if you don't, I think that I started doing this is a lot of thinking here.
Okay.
I think that I started doing this because now I realized like more of what my thought process was, because it's just like we were talking about before with labels and categorization and those kind of things. I think that I tried to logically figure out how life worked, right? So if you die and you cease to exist, then what you do here is that's it. So it's very important, I feel like, to get as much as you can out of life. If you go somewhere else after you die and it's based on your deeds in life, then that would be the same answer, right? I doubt it would floor me if your goal for life was to have the most boring life possible, doing the same thing over and over again.
Right.
Like, to me, that just doesn't seem like a high percentage chance, like a high probability of actually being the case.
Yeah, like all these people that are into like life extension and biohacking to prolong their life. I'm like, what's the point? You know, like, why?
Well, maybe they're having a good time.
They might be, but like that's going to be the people that are actually having a really good time right now are the minority in life, I think, right?
I think you're right, unfortunately.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I look at life extension as like one of these things that, you know, if the average right now the average person dies when they're what, like 75
something
or 80,
like that.
something like that, right? And most people retire when they're in their 60s, so they get like 65. You get 15 years of retirement. You know, let's hope that the quality of life is good, right? But golly, Dan, you know, if we move the bar, if we set that goalpost now at 120 years, I cannot fathom like how society is going to let us get away with like only working till you're 60. I mean, that'd be like working till you're 30 now, you know?
Right.
Like, if we're going to live to be 120 or 150, guess what? You're going to work until you're 110. I'm like, oh my God, the worst thing in the world. I can't imagine that, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, if you're going to be granted 15 or 20 years
I guess I never
of
really thought about
retirement,
that.
you know, like, holy smokes, I'm going to be working until I'm 135 years old.
Okay, so I get
No
that point.
way.
But so here's another point, because this is also another thing that I think about all the time, is you have a certain set of characteristics, right? Almost like a video game. So you have attributes, you have things that you're good at, you have strengths and weaknesses, just like anybody else, and your strengths are unique to you. Your weaknesses are unique to you, right? So that being the case, then you have a certain set of potential to do some things based on your strengths. And I think it would behoove you to find out what that is and then start doing it. I think most people don't, and that's why work is talked about just like that, right? If I had to do something with Mad Lab, if I had to work in a normal job, like I sold gutters at one point for like 3 months. That was about it. It was terrible.
Yeah, can you imagine selling gutters until you're 120 years old?
I wouldn't have made it. I would have thrown myself off of a bridge or somebody's roof.
Right.
Way before then.
Yeah.
But I could imagine doing something with Mad Lab until I'm 120.
Okay.
And I would love to see if I had that much time where it would go.
Yeah.
Right? Or like what my next adventure would be. So I think that if you're just looking at work and you're looking at work as just something that you go to survive that you don't enjoy at all, then you have a great point.
Yeah.
But then when that behoove us to more find your potential and find out what you should be doing with your life so that you're fulfilled in your work, would be my question.
Yeah. Okay. So once again, I'm going to take that and kind of, pivot that. Not pivot it. I'm going to turn that argument around a little bit.
All right.
Like,
this thing's spinning.
there was a time when I loved going to work. And you can imagine that, right? Like I come into Mad Lab, I'm like, Dan, it's time to win. Dan, I want to get hurt today. Dan, I want to depart by body bag. I'll say all these crazy things like
you have said every one of those things.
And I used to take that attitude at work, and I was so discouraged by people that would say things like, oh man, it's Monday. I hate Mondays. It's like, well, why? Because I got to go to work. Oh, okay. I guess you don't like your job very much. Or, the then there were the people that were like, oh my God, it's like 2 more days. It was Wednesday, 2 more days until Friday.
Yeah.
And then we get the weekend. And I was thinking, wow, and here we go, Alex the asshole again, right? Is your weekend so awesome that it can cancel out 5 days of work? I mean, is that how your life is? And
Which may be kind of cool, but I doubt that's the case.
yeah, but I can't imagine that if your life, I can't imagine how you could go through life saying 5/7 of my life, 5 days of the week, totally suck, right? And
that's terrible.
it is terrible. What a death trap. I mean, you're already dead, right? At that point,
But people do that
they do
because they think they're supposed to.
Yeah.
For 2 reasons, and it's status and money.
yeah.
That's it. So that they can say they're a certain position, or they are whatever they are, and so that they can make money.
Yeah.
And they'll go at lengths for both of those things that aren't actually real things.
So okay. So what do you do? What do you do then, Dan? Like let's take this life extension thing, and work with it a little bit. Now I'm 120 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 60 years ago, I became a global vice president in a publicly traded company.
Okay.
Okay. And what have I been doing for the last 60 years? Because I still have to work, right? Because that's the way the world works. Now that we live to 150, you got to work till I'm 135.
You got to have resources.
Yeah. So what do I do when I top out in all my professional goals? And I think you already know where I'm taking you on this one. And I know you're going to have the right answer for this. But once you have fulfilled all of your ambitions and you've made all your dreams come true and you still have 80 years, and it could be any number, right? It could be 10 years, right? It could be 6 months. I don't know. But what do you do when you have finally, done everything that you set out to do?
Well, he who stops dreaming stops living in the first place.
Wow,
But
who said that?
I don't know. I just thought about it. I'm
Dan
sure
Gilbert.
somebody smarter than
Dan
me said
Gilbert,
it. It's one of
okay.
those things that you
Yeah.
probably read somewhere that somebody else said. If not, though,
Hey, producer
We'll say
Mike,
it's Dan Gilbert.
slap a copyright stamp on that
yeah,
one. Dan Gilbert said
2023.
so. Yeah.
It's the only thing smart that I'll say all year, if it is even smart.
Yeah.
But it would be tough for me to think, and I don't know. Again, I've only lived my 41 years in life, so that's all I know, right? So I don't have experience being 60 or 80 or 120 or any of those things.
Yeah.
However, I feel like every month I have a new ambition or goal or whatever, and it'd be tough for me to think of that stopping.
Yeah.
Right? So, if I just had 2 goals, I'm born, I get to be 10 years old, nice double-digit number, nice round number. Then I start my goals. I have these 2 dreams, right? And then I accomplish them at 40. And then I couldn't imagine somebody just having 2 dreams or 6 dreams or 10 or 15
Yeah.
or whatever. So when they reach things, you also get new information as you are living longer. So with that new information, if you have dreams and you have enough ambition to reach those dreams, I just can't imagine somebody that does that not
And then
adding
stopping.
more dreams.
Yeah, right. And then stopping, right?
Right.
Okay, so let me play with that then. I can think of a couple people out there that are like that, right? Like
Oh, for sure. We both can.
Arnold, right? Okay, Arnold was that guy. He's like, okay, great. I'm going to move to America. I'm going to win Mr. Olympia, 8 times or whatever, whatever it was that he did. He had these things, and then he said, I'm going to be a movie star,
Yeah.
and then he was. And
He's
then he
going to
said-
kill the predator.
And then and then he said,
Tough thing to do.
but he did it.
He did it.
And then he said, I'm going to be a politician.
He did.
And he did it, And I love that story. I mean, you can say what you want about Arnold, and
For sure.
everybody's got character flaws, but this is a good roadmap. Okay, maybe not a good role model, but a good roadmap. Try out new stuff, right? Set new goals. And you're the one that said it. Keep setting new goals.
And stay healthy.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think that's a big reason that people start to drop their goals is they
Yeah.
don't pay attention to their health, and then things become, they're in pain, they're miserable, they can't do the things they want to do.
Yeah.
then you're kind of on a path to maybe.
Well, maybe that's why my buddy said you're going to die if you go in the Grand Canyon. You know, maybe what he's saying is, I wish I could do that too, but I've never taken very good care of myself. I've never dreamed that kind of a dream before.
Which is sad.
Yeah, I think it's.
But it happens. It happens often.
Yeah. So Dan, if we're going to change the world, I think we got to teach people how to dream big dreams, right?
Big dreams.
And we got to stop. We got to help people stop being assholes like Alex.
You're not an asshole, Alex.
I'm trying real hard, but I am because I haven't done it since we sat down on this episode to podcast. I've had nothing
Mike's
but,
hair blowing in the wind. Sorry.
I've had nothing but pure thoughts since I sat down with you, and yeah, that's great. Maybe that's a dream, right? So let me tell you a little story about a dream.
All right.
Setting new dreams about being angry, because if I'm an asshole today, I was 10 times worse just a few short years ago.
Okay.
So the story goes like this. I had an opportunity to help some guys start a company in Florida. And so I moved to Florida. And I left my family behind because I knew it was going to take everything I had, all of my attention, to start this company. And we did it. And then we sold it. We made a ton of money. But it was really hard work. And for 3 years, I was down there in Florida, and I was commuting. I'd come home on most weekends. But it changed me, right? It changed me. And I was there immersed in this environment, but more or less 24/7. I'd come home on the weekends, no time to compress, still focused, still answering emails, going on calls and things. And then we sold the company and we made a ton of money, and it was time to start a new gig. So my wife came down to help me move, and we loaded up the car and we loaded up a truck, and we're driving back. We're driving back to Baltimore. And, we're just bombing along the highway, and I'm talking to my wife, and about every third word, I'm dropping the F-bomb, right? And she says, wow, you are dropping the F-bomb all over the place. Why are you so angry?
Brenda called you out.
She did. Good for her. That's
good for her. Yeah.
It's like one of the best things that ever happened to me, Brenda.
Yeah.
But she calls me out on it. She's like, why are you so angry? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not angry. She says, yeah, you are. Listen to yourself. Every other word is you're dropping the F-bomb. You're clearly upset about something. You're very agitated. And I said then and there, I'm going to stop doing that. And I'm going to stop dropping the F-bomb. And I set a goal for myself. And not perfect, Dan. I still do it, but I do it rarely now.
I've not heard you say it.
Yeah, I'm trying real hard. I set a hard goal for myself. I dreamed a little dream, okay, to stop dropping the F-bomb. And, by and large, we're successful. I still say it silently to myself, like when I'm in traffic, and I'm silently judging every person that I see. I'm still dropping the F-bomb, but not as often, right? And yeah, we don't think about setting goals for ourselves like that. Like, oh, I'm going to stop using the F-bomb, or I'm going to walk across the Grand Canyon, or I'm going to start a podcast with Dan. People don't do that so much.
No, they just live in the day to day. Unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm not sure where I was going with all that, but
well, it was a great story.
Yeah, something about being angry and not being quite so angry anymore. Yeah. But on the other hand, Dan, anger is an energy, right? And, somebody told me, it may have been one of my docs, in fact, said, it's okay to be angry. It's what you do with that anger that is important, right? Anger can be an energy, and anger means you still care. And Dan, when we were doing this email exchange or this text exchange earlier in the week, we very quickly went from angry to passionate. And I think my doc had it right. If you're angry, it means you still care about something.
That's fair.
Okay, so I don't know.
Maybe you're not an asshole after all.
I'm gonna let my peers be the jury on that one. I'm a notoriously bad self-evaluator. Okay, so I'll let history be my judge on whether I am or I ain't. But what I do want to do is give everybody permission to be a little bit angry, and use that anger for good works. Okay, use it to make the world a little better place.
I just want to tell everybody about my friends across the street, CNA Auto here in Eldersburg, Maryland. You have your car catch on fire, explode, tire goes flying off, or maybe it's something like a transmission or even an oil change, or you need something done to your car in any way possible. My friends at CNA Auto will take care of you. All of your automotive needs, no matter what the car, you bring it in, Adam will take care of you. Tell him Dan sent you. Tell him your friends at Mad Lab sent you.
Yeah, there's another person out there I'd like to give a shout out to. Like Jocko, you haven't endorsed this podcast yet, but you've provided a lot of creative energy. And Jocko, if you're ready to win, we're ready to host you here on the podcast. So Jocko Welling, thanks for the inspiration. Look forward to hearing from you soon.
I'd also like to take time to thank my friends at The Locomotive, a nice little bar down on Main Street. You can get a lot of specialty cocktails, or you can just have a beer, or my favorite, a little bit of tequila. Go in there, nice atmosphere, good food, great drinks, and even better people.
Okay, Dan. So we got the automobiles covered with CNA. Adam
Yes,
CNA.
yep.
We've got Jocko for creative inspiration and motivation, as if we needed any more, right? We've got the Locomotive for eats and drinks. I think the only thing left to cover is everything else. And if there's anything else you need, you're going to find it at Kendall Hardware down in Clarksville.
Oh.
Thanks for everything you're doing down there. And Kendall Hardware, and we look forward to seeing you sponsoring this podcast sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And earlier, Alex, you mentioned that you were an asshole. And
I did. Yeah.
I don't think that's true, especially after this podcast, for sure. You're definitely not anymore. I would say that you're the man.
That's real nice of you, Dan. I'm not the man. I'm just some guy. What time is it, Dan?
Oh, it's time to win.
Yeah.
Thank you all.